league. You know, his early games, especially if you look at his impact in terms of kills and assists at 15 minutes, he ranked 2nd in the league. He's been very good on champions like the Rek'Sai, so this Olaf fits into that wheelhouse of having early game pressure. So I'm very excited to see him evolve as a player, because it feels a little bit maybe like when Selfmade came into the league last split, where he came in and was very strong early on a team that was struggling or was trying to, you know, prove themselves. Inspired seems to be in a very similar situation already.
Of course, we were looking at Trick's stats there. Inspired has had a good tournament as well, but Trick has been doing a very good job as well. It's the story of the junglers, Ender. I kind of baited you and outsmarted you by switching it around. Inspired unable to steal away the Scuttle Crab there from Trick, who gets it, but Inspired is actually already a level up. AvantasiaGambler forced underneath its tower here in the matchup against Syndra, which is to be expected.
Yeah, everything going as we would plan here. Now, Inspired is moving up towards that top side of the map, so he will control the Scuttle Crab, and because he is Olaf, you just power clear through that jungle. So he will be able to control that side of the map, then probably look for a reset. Now, it's not going to be a Predator on this Olaf, which is something we see a lot. Instead, it is the Conqueror, so it's much stronger for dueling, and he should win just about any trade he takes up against Trick. But right now, he is going to be spotted out on a ward, which will be dying. So in a moment, Odoamne will not have any idea if Inspired is still around.
You can see AvantasiaGambler chunked out quite a bit in the mid lane as well. 15 CS down or thereabouts right now. Upset jumps forward down towards the bottom side, but that's just a little bit of poke back and forth. AvantasiaGambler expected to lose this matchup. Did pick into the Syndra though, which is an interesting one because they really showed that Schalke wanted to go for this split push 1-3-1 playstyle and were willing to give up some mid lane pressure.
Yeah, I don't think AvantasiaGambler wants to be 13 CS down at the moment. If you look at this, Larssen playing the lane very well. He's freezing the wave at the moment. I don't think AvantasiaGambler should have shown there because Larssen was about to get that reset off, but instead now AvantasiaGambler will be forced to try and farm very far forward in his lane, where he is vulnerable.
Inspired looking to see perhaps if Trick decided to gank this top side. We said Schalke would be more likely to play around the top side of the map, whereas Rogue have the advantage in mid and bot, and that seems to be how it's playing out as of yet. Although Prophet's done a pretty good job of just farming up in this lane and managing to survive early on. And I think the question now for me becomes, where are your key points of attack for both these two teams? You look at the top lane, you look at the level 6s coming out, maybe that's where we expect some action to happen.
Yeah, I think that has to be the area, because right now mid lane, both of these players are going to be going for a reset. Unless Trick could cancel, that could be really big for them.
The cancel does come out.
Yeah, I mean, he does have teleport, but what this buys is AvantasiaGambler time. Right now he's farming on very low HP, and you can check how much gold he actually has at the moment too, because sitting on 960, so he's 300 down. He might be trying to go back to base, pick up a Vampiric Scepter is probably the best bet for him to have that survivability to last in lane.
And something we have seen early on in this game is very good tracking with those wards. Both junglers having just superficial wards into their own jungle around the Razor Beaks, around the sort of the start of these entrances to the river, means that it's very hard for them to find good gank paths. You can see Inspired here, caught on one. He's teaming up with Vanda to try and clear out some vision, but they actually just walked over a ward coming up here as well that's expired just where Vanda is. So it makes it quite hard for these junglers to find those avenues of attack.
Yeah, I really like how Rogue was playing right there, because we saw both Vander and Inspired coming up towards mid lane as Larssen TP'd back in. Larssen continues to freeze that lane, so AvantasiaGambler couldn't even teleport himself. He's down 20 CS at the moment and has control wards all throughout that river, so he's very concerned whenever he walks forward, and especially with how Inspired has been controlling this lane, it makes it very tough for him to play without the knowledge of where Inspired is.
Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, still a slight CS lead for Upset, playing very safe in that matchup. Hiku and Vanda haven't really been able to pressure onto the Ezreal or Tahm Kench yet because Schalke have the vision control. You can't really jump forward if a Lee Sin could be waiting just around the corner. And maybe they're waiting for those, first completed items before they can really put the hammer down onto this Schalke bottom lane.
Yeah, I would say it's also very hard for Inspired to actually find a gank anywhere. Yes, you have some follow-up CC with a Braum or perhaps the Syndra as well, but ultimately all these lanes from Schalke are super safe. Bot lane, impossible to gank. Mid lane, very difficult as well, but Trick has options now that he's level 6.
And we talked about the vision control. Trick standing on a control ward, knows that Rogue aren't around. Vanda trying to trade in here. Hiku looking for the concussive blows. Maybe Ignar just trying to see if Hiku will overstep, but instead, Trick will just back away. I do want to come back to that Olaf point though, because as far as I hear in it when I talk to Frosk about LPL, Olaf is an early game jungler. You get early leads and you gank bot all of the time. if you can't have lanes where ganking is easy, what's the point of picking the Olaf?
Well, the point of picking the Olaf is to secure very strong dueling power. If both junglers show up, you're almost always going to win those fights. That's why he's allowed to invade here up against Trick. Even though Trick is level 6, there's no way he actually can go toe-to-toe with Inspired in that 1v1. So usually you'll see either Olafs go for a little bit more invading or control the river. He's done very well in terms of having all the scuttle crabs so far that have spawned after that first set. But as far as actually ganking lanes, it's very hard when your lanes are pushing, because Olaf doesn't have that hard CC. He has to run you down over a pretty long area of the map.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't really do that when your mid lane and bottom lane are both pushing pretty consistently.
That makes a lot of sense. Larson here coming to get his blue buff, one of the key components, of course, of Rogue, brought in this split alongside Inspired. He's been a guy that's sort of sat at the edges of the LEC for quite a long time, and now has started to make his foray into it. I think a lot of people expected him to be a bit more like a new Caps in the form of he will make plays, he will 1v1, but he's more of a utility mid. He always does his job.
Yeah, it's less of a utility mid, I think, as just someone that does his job. He does not look bad, really, ever. And you say, you know, he has the lowest death share on his team. You know, he has the highest damage percentage on his team, too. It goes to show his stats aren't, I have the best KDA or I, you know, get a lot of these solo kills. It's just that he is relied on very heavily by his team, and his pick